Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about Ready Player One, the movie, and the book. So to kick this off, I want you to know that I am a huge fan of Ready Player One. I got this book years ago, and at the time it was really awesome, a really good read for me. And I don't think it's aged as well as I appreciate it because I've read a lot of hate about it on the internet nowadays. That it is definitely a product of its time, but we're not going to try to dive into the literary criticism of the book, but really focus on the movie that just came out, directed by Steven Spielberg, and see what kind of worked, what kind of didn't, why I liked it, why I kind of walked out of the theater and said the book was better than the movie. Now, the book being better than the movie is kind of a cliche thing to say about it because we kind of treat movies and books separately. Over the years, it was easy to kind of point fingers at things like Dune and be like, oh, the book is infinitely better than the movie.
The planet is Arrakis, also known as Dune.
But, in the case of Ready Player One, yeah, they have to make some things, just kind of like the Harry Potter novels when they got translated to the big screen. You have to jettison some stuff. It's a book. There's just too much going on to cram into 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever you're going for. And I get that. I get that right away that you can't have everything in the movie. But at the same time, I felt like they could have retained something. And really, it started with the Oasis for me. In the book, you're going to hear me say that a lot. In the book, it's more than an escape for Wade Watts, Artemis, all the Gunters. It's an escape for everyone across the planet because they kind of touch on it in the movie, but I felt this was something they really got left out that they should have stuck with, is the Oasis is a way of life for most people on the planet Earth now. In this dystopian future that Ernest Cline has created, it's kind of like a world where like solar power didn't really take off or anything. Because basically, in the book, the world is out of fossil fuels for the most part. Like, it's gone. People are not driving anywhere anymore. We have really no means conveyance that like we used to. So people kind of migrate to cities where there's jobs, where they can walk to jobs, and they kind of stay there because there's not much gas left. In fact, we learned that like Wade's character, he was like, he's stuck where he is in the stacks because basically his family ran out of gas, and that's just where they ended up. Everyone goes to the Oasis to go places because you literally can't go anywhere because there's no cars really. And in the movie, they make the Oasis out to be a video game, which originally it was, and even in the book acknowledges that. But really, it's this way of life, because that's like they really jettisoned this from the book. Was a Wade is a student in the book, and in the movie, he's just a guy doing his thing. And I really wish they had kept that student aspect to it, because it really helps define Wade as a character that you can relate to. He's just a really dorky kid who's stuck in a poor life and he wants to get out and he wants to graduate. He just wants to fly under the radar. He wants to complete Halliday's quest. He wants to find the Easter eggs, the keys, all of it. But mostly it's not because he really believes in the Oasis at first, but he wants to improve his quality of life because he was grown up poor. He grew up on government cheese, basically. They kind of allude to in the book. He's not really heavy dude, but he's definitely not fit the way he is in the movie. He does become fit later in the book, but like starting off, he's a big, fat, dorky high school kid. And he goes to a public school, which is what the Oasis is for. It used to be just for, hey, you can come play in Star Trek World or Serenity World or Universe and all that. But really it was like, oh, we go to jobs there. We go to school there. We do everything there. And you kind of lose that. And with that, you kind of lose a lot of the aspects that kind of surround the Oasis. Because once again, one thing I think they could have easily retained in the movie. In the movie, we get to meet Wade, and he's instantly friends with a lot of the other characters in the book that we see later on. In the movie, they're just there. They're all just bumbling around Columbus, Ohio, basically, within like feet of each other, which is kind of like diminishes the movie and the book a little bit in both extremes. Because in the book, they're spread across the world, and that's how, once again, the Oasis connects everyone. And in the movie, they're just kind of like, oh yeah, what, you were just like 5 blocks away from me the whole time? And I really don't like that because, I mean, that was the whole point of the book, really, was that it connected people, and that's what Halliday was after. But also, it helps with our characters in general. Like, once again, the book is better than the movie. The book is better than the movie. One thing that bothered me was, that once again, they can change these challenges all they want, that they do in the book is a lot more simplistic. We spent a lot of time with Wade at high school. Like I mentioned, he's a student. And then, he finds Artemis basically in a D&D simulation that Halliday put on the planet, the school planet that he's on. And then he kind of rises up. Once again, he's poor. Even in the Oasis, he doesn't have a lot of money. And he manages to finally, win something, gain notoriety, become better, raise his standard of living, get more on IOI's radar screen. And we don't really get that in the movie. He's already kind of there. He's, racing the DeLorean, something he earns much later on in the book. And that's not really the, it makes you care a lot less about Wade Watts. I think that's my overall point. Was a lot of the criticism of the book originally was that Wade is pining after Artemis, one of the female characters in the book. Surprisingly enough, I felt like she was much better written in the movie because Wade was so poorly written, almost. Artemis's goals in the movie are very clear. She wants to save the Oasis, keep IOI's hands off it so they can't turn it for profit for, online advertising and stuff like that. She's fighting the good fight with a band of rebels. They're just trying to complete Halliday's quest, get his Easter egg. Wade is supposed to be able to figure out a lot of things in the book, and he does eventually. But really, he's pining after this girl. And then even in the movie, you can tell he's interested in her, but we don't really get a sense of why he wants to win the game. We don't know why he wants to win the game, is basically it. It has this problem of basically a weak main character, which some sci-fi movies kind of suffer from in recent years. We don't have clear motivations for him, so I'm not really rooting for him in the movie, I guess is my point. I'm not really rooting for Wade to win the Easter egg. If anything, I was rooting for Artemis because I understood what her struggles were and I knew why she wanted to win. Wade was kind of like, oh, this would be cool. Yay, And I mean, it's kind of like, come on, guys. Like, make me care. Make me want Wade to triumph. Another thing that was interesting, once again, that I think the lines got blurred a little bit. Once again, in the Oasis, everyone knows everyone, it seems like. But also, IOI is supposed to be the big bad villain in this series. And in the book, they are, and in the movie they are. But in the movie, I feel like they missed a couple points where, and this comes again to the point I made earlier, that everyone happens to be in Columbus, Ohio, and everyone's poor. Like, everyone we see in that movie feels poor. Like, why is everyone so poor? Because that's the thing. IOI is basically Comcast in this universe. And not everyone at Comcast is poor. You have service technicians, customer service reps, you have mid-level, and you have upper management. And that's the way IOI is supposed to be. And it was really hard at some points in the movie to distinguish the people that were just playing in the Oasis. They're getting paid well, by the way. That's the thing. Like, they have the indentured servitudes that they get into later, and is a big plot point in the book, but here it's kind of a quick anecdote, but like, they basically force people into paying off their debts by buying your debt, and then they charge you a bunch of stuff while you're working there, so you never really get out of debt. But so there's those people down there, but also there are mid-tier people that are living pretty okay working for IOI, doing whatever in the Oasis or being in the Owlry, as we learn, where they learn about, all of Halliday's secrets and stuff like that. So those people are doing okay. And we never really get to see like the middle class in this movie. Another visual cue they did was when you're in the Oasis, you're interacting with your environment, haptic gloves. You feel it on your suit and through your visor and stuff like that. But really, it wasn't later in the book that Wade gets a chair that we see the head honcho at IOI have, basically. Sorrento has this giant chair that he sits in and that he can interact with everything. Well, Wade also gets one of those too in the book, but I was like, why do you need the chair if you run on the treadmill too? Does that just take the running? It was not very visually clear why you need a chair versus just standing and walking around. So they kind of like, oh, that's a cool visual, but they kind of jettison like that idea when you show everyone else running around the Oasis in real life. And so it's like, why do you need a chair then? Because it seemed, and that was kind of once again going back to my original point. The Oasis is a part of life.
Help us save the Oasis.
I've been going on and on and on and on and on about what kind of like, okay, so the book was better than the movie, but what was better in the movie than the book? Well, obviously they couldn't get the rights to War Games, but they did have a really cool scene with The Shining that was really well done. They really felt like they were in the old hotel from The Shining, and everything about that I visually enjoyed. I'm not too sure how you get away with an elevator full of blood. Maybe it's a throwback in today's ratings, but they did it. There it is, blood pouring out of the elevator, and they're just like, woo, yeah. Simon Pegg was a great choice for Og. He is squandered in the movie, though, because of the way they changed the characters' roles once again. I really wish they had had more Og in there, and they do, but not in the way he is in the book. So I really like the character of Og, and I'm sad that he doesn't have much to do in the movie, but once again, Simon Pegg, that was a great choice for that role, and, lovely to see him in that. As far as other casting choices go, they're just not... Nobody stood out to me in the movie, and that's an okay thing. Here's another thing I liked about the movie, and it's something, not a lot of people talking about because we all kind of expected it if you read the book or heard anything about Ready Player One, is this could have been one of the biggest IP crossover movies since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. In that, you famously have Bugs Bunny next to Mickey Mouse. This is like you got Gundams next to Tracer from Overwatch and stuff like that. They mix a lot of like nostalgia with modern day stuff, which you obviously have to do, but kind of the point of the Oasis and a lot of more the Gunter kind of stuff was that they were really rooted in the 80s. So I always wonder like how many references kids nowadays are going to get out of this movie because of all the, there's the DeLorean and even King Kong. I don't know. Like, do you get King Kong? You tell me. Do you get King Kong? I don't know. I hope so. Back in 2011 when this book came out, like we were just hitting that peak of nostalgia. Everything was coming back and stuff like that. And then it's kind of been petering off for the last few years where more and more, really what it comes down to when people say like, oh, Ready Player One, it's more of like, I think we hit that peak of nostalgia a while ago. And now like anything can be satisfied that you were nostalgic for when you were a kid, basically, especially someone like me who was a young kid in the 80s and a teenager in the 90s, was that Mystery Science Theater 3000 is back, folks. I don't have to go pining for it. It's back on Netflix. Anything Voltron's back on Netflix. Everything I grew up with is back in some shape or form. So it's not like I have to continue to look to the past as Ready Player One does and be like, oh, wasn't it wonderful then? I only saw the movie once. I want to see it again because there's this visual smorgasbord of characters and references being thrown at each other, and they do a pretty decent job of like bringing that to your eyeballs. The score is pretty good. Once again, it smacks a lot of Back to the Future Robert Zemeckis in points, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it is that whimsy, nostalgia. You could tell Spielberg, has the Vaseline on the lenses and we're hitting all those notes. So I don't mind the score so much. I don't mind the visual direction so much. It's easy that you can have avatars look not human because they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be, characters in a video game and only a video game, not the way of life. Would I tell you to watch Ready Player One? Sure, go ahead. But just know that it's all on the surface there. It's not a very deep movie for a book that goes pretty deep into the mythology. A lot of the history of geekdom from the 80s is buried in this book in a good way. It's fun to learn about, the little Easter eggs that Atari Adventure put in and stuff like that, the guys who programmed that stuff. Here is where I got almost out of my seat and walked out of the theater. And I remember this distinctly, when you have like such an itching for like something you've read and you want to see it, you visualized it in your brain, you want to see it on the big screen. And I remember it was like a long time ago, it was that fourth Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Is like, the Quidditch World Cup is so built up in the book, in my brain, really visual in the book where they describe the actual match and stuff. And in the movie, if you remember, they build it up, and then they just cut to it's after the match. But if you think about it, it's not really necessary to telling that story. Who cares who wins the Quidditch World Cup? It's what comes afterwards that matters. In Ready Player One, I had those visuals built up in my brain, and then they presented something else on screen for me, and I had to sit there and adjust to it. But eventually I was like, well, I know how this ends. Do I just want to get up and go? Because I don't even know if I want to sit here and watch all this other take on stuff when it's not really hitting any buttons for me. Here's the thing. I didn't think this would ever get made into a movie. It's crazy that it did. I should, be excited. And when I saw the first trailers, I'm like, oh, that's the thing. And even in the trailers, they had that scene where the IOI guys are rushing in for the first test. And they're getting in their cars and they're playing Rush. And I was like, they didn't really have that in the movie. And I was like, well, that was a great beat drop for the trailer. Why didn't you just stick that in there? But yeah, at the same time, there's so much going on in this book that I'm surprised that even anyone said, if Spielberg hadn't been attached to it, I don't even think it would have gotten made, honestly. I don't think it would ever seen the light of day because there's so much IP like playing you had to do to make sure you could do everything. But it's there now. I don't even think it'll ever get made again. That's the thing. It's like, this is the only take we're ever going to get on it. Yeah, they're never going back to this well. This is Ready Player One, and you better enjoy it. Final thoughts. My recommendation, go see the movie if you want, if you're nostalgic for the 80s. But my real recommendation, go listen to this book on audiobook. Because Will Wheaton narrates it, and he narrates the hell out of this book. Will Wheaton narrates the out of this book, and it's well done by him. So go listen to it. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Let me know what you think in the comments below.